Sooner Nation, Todd Bates has done it. He has landed an elite defensive lineman through the transfer portal, and he's also gotten another one this cycle. And now we look at this defensive line as immensely improved, especially since the last coaching regime. And today we got to talk about what the impact of Damonic Williams is going to have on this defensive line, what you as a OU fan should potentially expect this upcoming season from what we currently have in that room and what we're adding. But before we do that, guys, I need to hear from y'all. So make sure you're joining the discussion, jumping down in the comments below, giving me your thoughts, your opinions on not only the acquisition of Damonic Williams, but what you guys think about this defensive line overall as a whole. Because even during the Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch era here at Oklahoma, which offensively was a phenomenal era, we were all pleased on the offensive side of the ball. The defense is where it was lacking. And when Brent Venables came in to be the head coach of Oklahoma, we all had high hopes that Todd Bates was going to be able to do and replicate what he did at Clemson here at Oklahoma. And he did it. He's already been doing it. Look at what he did with Jonah Laulu, who was a guy that came in through the transfer portal, started at defensive end, and let's be honest, really just wasn't working out to per se get him drafted. They moved him inside, and he goes a little late, but he gets drafted. Not only that, you saw a couple Clemson defensive line players get drafted that Todd Bates not only recruited, but brought on to Clemson and coached as well. And this is pretty significant, and this is impactful because it shows Todd Bates' production and what he's able to do for players. And now you get a guy like Damonic Williams who, let's be honest, he probably really didn't need to come to Oklahoma, but he comes to Oklahoma. He is now improving his draft stock. And this is a guy that if he puts it all together, and he has a phenomenal season, dare I say this is a first-round talent. And I think we can look at it and say Todd Bates is going to have a major contribution to getting Damonic Williams into the first round. Here's the deal, though. I look at the depth of this interior defensive line right now, and I think it's unmatched to probably anything that we have seen here with Oklahoma football and the defensive side of the ball in a long time. You've got Dejon Terry, who comes in at 6'3", 322 pounds, probably still your starting nose tackle. But then you've got Damonic Williams, who going to be probably on the left side of him at 6'2", 310. Jermaine Lole at 6'3", 320. Five-star defensive lineman here in this 2024 class, David Stone. Right now, he's at 6'3", 300 pounds. You've got Devon Sears, 6'3". I believe he's kind of almost in the 300 range. Jaden Jackson, 6'2", 300. Grayson Halton, 6'2", 295. This interior defensive line for Oklahoma, it's full of fatties. And that's exactly what we need. And not fatties in the bad way. I'm talking about fatties in the good way. You've got good weight in there. And you've got guys that can go in there and push some of these opposing offensive lines around and get to the quarterback, cause QB hurries, create those sacks and tackles for loss. And these guys bring in production. Here's what Damonic Williams did at TCU. He had 60 total tackles, 26 solos, 9.5 tackles for loss, and 4.5 sacks. And he played this past season in 475 snaps for TCU. He had a 69.4 overall grade. He had a run defense grade of 72.9. So he definitely blocks those gaps a little bit, suffocates those holes. He had a pass rush grade of 63.7. So really you can look at it and say an area that Damonic needs to improve is in the pass game. And now all of these stats are provided by PFF, of course. But Damonic Williams is going to be a guy that he brings in that immediate production. And in 2 years, he has been phenomenal for TCU. He played in a national championship game. So he also brings in experience and a winning mentality. And under Todd Bates' tutelage, again, going to be a guy that I expect has aspirations to be a first-round guy. And imagine what's going to happen and what happens to the narrative with the Oklahoma defense, especially on the defensive line, if Todd Bates brings in Damonic Williams through the transfer portal and puts him in the first round. Think about that for a second. Then all of a sudden, other elite defensive linemen might start to look at Todd Bates and say, man, if I've only got 1 year till the draft, maybe I should go be a part of that defensive line because maybe Todd Bates can do something similar for me. And it's not always going to be first round, but maybe he can get me drafted. Jermaine Lole, he was a prospect Oklahoma brought in. He has been phenomenal in his career at Arizona State and Louisville. Although he was injured 2 years, this past season played 408 total snaps for Louisville. Here's what he's done in his career. Here's the kind of production you're bringing in with Jermaine Lole. 141 total tackles, 66 solos, 25 tackles for loss, 12 and a half sacks. He has 10 pass breakups, 2 fumble recoveries, and 3 forced fumbles. You're telling me opposing SEC offensive linemen want to see Jermaine Lole across from him? It's going to be a nightmare for opposing SEC offensive linemen. Then I was looking at some of the guys that Oklahoma currently has in this room that they're bringing back, like a Dejon Terry, who is probably going to be your starting nose tackle. He's been phenomenal in his career. 69 total tackles, 38 solos, 12 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. And last year, he graded out really well, 76.9 on the defensive grade. He had a run defense of 83.4, which was 28th best in the country. Again, could improve a little bit on the pass rush where he was 59.6, but he played in 303 total snaps for Oklahoma. Dejon Terry was phenomenal for Oklahoma last year. You've got a guy like Grayson Halton in this room, who in the 90 snaps that he got last year had a defensive grade of 76.2, a run defense grade of 74.2, and a pass rush grade of 71.8. If he can continue that production, my goodness, Grayson Halton's going to be an absolute monster, and that's something Oklahoma fans have been wanting to see. Then you had Devon Sears, who you saw in the spring game, he was getting the pressure. He was being a force on that defensive line. He had a 80.2 defensive grade in the lone 11 snaps that he played last year. So not as many snaps. But I'm telling you right now, Devon Sears, if he booms, it's going to be probably one of the most underrated takes Oklahoma has gotten out of the transfer portal. Devon Sears has all of the capabilities in the world to be that dude for Oklahoma. I'm excited to see what Devon Sears is going to be able to do on the field. And I'm excited to see if he is able to replicate what he did in the spring. Because if he does that, Oklahoma's got themselves an elite defensive line with all of the bodies they have now. Because we talked about all these guys that have produced in college football. We didn't even talk about the true freshmen in David Stone and Jaden Jackson. Not to mention you've got sophomores like Marcus Strong and Ashton Sanders. There's a lot of hope for this defensive line room. And as I said yesterday in the Damonic Williams commitment video, Oklahoma's defensive line just might be elite. And it might be top 2 in the SEC. Top 2. And by the end of the year, it could be one of the top 5 defensive lines in all of college football. That's the expectations that I have. And that's what Oklahoma fans have to look forward to this upcoming season. So go ahead, jump in the comments below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were on the acquisition of Damonic Williams, even Jermaine Lole. Were you impressed? Do you think these acquisitions make Oklahoma's defensive line great? Hey, and if you made it this far and you have not already, make sure you go ahead and you hit that like and you hit that subscribe button.